Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here and welcome back. Today we're looking at Omega Fighter, an Arcade Archives title that originally hit Switch on July 26th, 2018 and PS4 the following year. I picked this up in early 2021 and to this day it remains one of the coolest retro shooters I've come across. At the time I didn't cover the game in any sort of meaningful way and always wanted to come back to it and offer something more useful and in-depth. So in this video, we'll touch on some of the development history, gameplay and mechanics, why I think it's a super cool shooter, and some general advice for those jumping in for a survival, clear, or scoring. Omega Fighter is a 1-to-2 player vertically scrolling arcade shooter developed by UPL or Universal Playland and released in 1989 in Japan. North America and Europe would see releases later that year, with the North American version's publication being handled by American Sammy, also known as Sammy USA Corporation. At one point there were plans to release a Sega Genesis version, but those plans eventually fell through. I'm not sure what factors played into that decision, but it would have been awesome to have this on a cartridge had it not been cancelled. The game includes 8 stages that take place alongside, over, or within a massive alien cruiser that has come to Earth to launch an attack on humanity. There are only 2 weapons available for your ship, both of which can be picked up as on-screen items, and collecting more of the same acts as a power-up. The first weapon is the ion laser, or iron as the in-game manual calls it, and the second is the wide shot, or simply wide. One thing I really like about the power-up system in Omega Fighter is that it gives both weapons a double-edged sword factor that becomes more extreme the more you power up either weapon. For instance, the ion laser shoots straight and has a high damage output. Powering it up increases the damage significantly but reduces the range of your attack. This is my weapon of choice, and you can get your attack so strong that medium or larger enemies can be destroyed in less than a second, but it's at the cost of having such a short range that you'll need to fly incredibly close to enemies to even deal damage. The wide shot, on the other hand, offers you a wider range as you might expect. When powering up, your attack will gain greater and greater width, but at the cost of decreased rapid-fire speed. In addition to the weapon items you'll see on the screen throughout your runs, you'll also encounter a few other things. There's a silver triangle referred to as slow in the manual. Collecting this item will add it to either the left or right side of your ship depending on which side you touch the item with. Unless of course you have one attached already, in that case it'll just attach to the empty spot. When using the item, everything except for your movement speed and firing will slow down for a short period, which makes it easier to speed kill things or move amidst enemy projectiles. This is especially useful when using the ion laser at a high power level, as it makes it temporarily safer to move close to enemies. If you grab the Crush All, which is the gold item with red tips, it will destroy all on-screen enemies, and while I haven't tested using this against every single boss in the game, the Crush All can eliminate bosses instantaneously, and I wouldn't be surprised if it worked on all of them. These side attachment items always appear to activate from right to left, not in the order you pick them up. So if you grab a silver on your left side followed by a Crush All on your right, your Crush All will get used first, which may not be what you want if you were planning to save it for something specific. So always do what you can to snag a Crush All on your left side. Additionally, the silver and Crush All can be used as a sort of shield since they'll absorb an enemy bullet, or touching it against an enemy will destroy that enemy, at least the small ones. Again, I haven't tested this on every foe in the game. After absorbing one bullet or touching an enemy, the item will vanish from your side. One thing to keep in mind is that while this is a vertically scrolling shooter, there are numerous instances where the screen will briefly scroll left, right, or even downward for a short duration. This adds yet another interesting element to the experience because with how often the game pans to one side or the other, you may run into a freshly spawned enemy and lose a silver or Crush All when you would have preferred using it for the respective effect. But at least you get to come away without having lost a life. Furthermore, with the nature of the scrolling in Omega Fighter, playing aggressively and efficiently destroying enemies is of the utmost importance. Otherwise, you can find yourself in situations where you're either pushed into a corner or you're surrounded in the middle of the screen because the game scrolled down, revealing enemies below you that were not dealt with earlier. Even with the potential for slow motion, things can get cramped within seconds, so always strive to clear enemies as quickly as possible. There is also a weapon item that grants you a wide shot at maximum power. A second loop awaits those who manage to clear the game, and it's revealed with a cool scene that shows the alien ship exploding, followed by the realization that it was one of many. Games with a second loop seldom do anything special to accent the transition from one to the other, so a brief scene like this adds a nice flavor to the mix. The scoring system in Omega Fighter is fascinating and encourages the aggressive approach I mentioned. The closer you are to an enemy when destroying it, the higher the multiplier for the score earned. The range of the multiplier is 1x to 10x, 10x being when you are pretty much touching the enemy. When you achieve a 10x multiplier, the multiplier gauge along the top of the screen fills. If you nail enough 10x multipliers to hit the halfway mark of the gauge, you get a Crush All, and if you take it all the way, a 1-up item will appear on the screen for you to collect. Since Crush All and 1-ups are both incredibly valuable resources, it gives players a solid incentive to play aggressively by point blanking for 10x multipliers even if you're not playing for score. At the end of each stage, you receive a bonus of 10,000 points times the largest multiplier earned in that stage. For instance, if you get enough 2x multipliers to fill the ×2 bar during the score tally screen between stages, you'll get 10,000 times 2 as a bonus because 2 is the largest or most full. If you're playing for score, memorize where lines of enemy fighters filter in so you can catch them right on the corner of your ship or take advantage of slow motion instances to perform the same sort of maneuver. The music in Omega Fighter is a major highlight for me. Stage 1 has a pretty heavy tune that feels completely metal with its background guitar-like layer, and I wonder what inspired this track because it doesn't sound like your typical arcade composition. The other stages offer unique tracks as well, though another that really strikes me is Stage 7. When you see the ship map just before entering the level, you can immediately tell that the game is about to buckle down on you, and it absolutely does. As for sound effects, there are a number of really cool things to hear. One of my favorites is actually the wide shot firing, since it makes a nice and thick sound that gives off this feeling of unleashing ceaseless layers of bullets onto everything in front of you. The game's presentation is also pretty awesome. I love Stage 1's opening visuals because we get this bright and massive look at the planet, leading to a sense of awe every time I see it. Bosses and enemy designs are neat, stages are fun and creative, and overall it's just a fascinating package from 1989. I'll leave off there for now, but I'd love to know what you guys think. If you've jumped into this one before, feel free to mention that in the comments, or if this video has piqued your interest, that's great too. Thanks so much for checking out this video, and we'll see you next time. Take care.